Omar had always lived a quiet life. He was an ordinary man who liked things simple and peaceful. He worked from home as a computer programmer, which meant he spent most of his days sitting at his desk, looking at screens, and solving problems no one else could understand. Omar didn't have many friends, and he liked it that way. The world outside his small apartment was noisy and confusing. He preferred the calm inside his room, with his books, his coffee, and his computer. One evening, as Omar was finishing his dinner, something strange happened. A bright light filled the sky outside his window. It was not like any plane or helicopter he had ever seen. It was a soft glow that moved slowly and silently. Omar blinked and rubbed his eyes, thinking maybe he was tired or dreaming. But when he looked again, he saw a small spaceship landing quietly in the park near his apartment building. Omar's heart beat faster. He had read about aliens in books and watched movies where they came from other planets, but he never imagined he would see one in real life. For a moment, he stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Should he run? Should he call someone? But curiosity pulled him toward the window. The spaceship's door opened with a soft hiss, and a figure stepped out. She looked like a young woman, but was unlike anyone Omar had ever seen. Her skin was a soft green color that shimmered slightly in the light. Her eyes were big and bright, full of wonder and kindness. She wore a simple silver dress that flowed as she moved. Omar felt a strange feeling inside. He was not afraid. Somehow he knew she was peaceful. The spaceship made a gentle humming sound before closing its door and disappearing back into the sky. Omar watched the spot where it had landed, now empty except for a small suitcase left on the grass. Then he heard footsteps behind him. It was a man in a uniform. The man smiled politely and said, "Good evening, Omar. I'm here to introduce you to your new companion." Omar blinked. "Companion? What do you mean?" The man explained that the spaceship had delivered Sari, an alien from another world, who would live with Omar for a while as part of a special exchange program between their two planets. It was a way for the aliens and humans to learn about each other. Omar was surprised but agreed, even though he did not fully understand what was happening. Sari entered the apartment quietly. She looked around, touching the walls and furniture, as if everything was new and exciting. Omar noticed she didn't speak, but she smiled warmly at him. Her eyes seemed full of life and happiness, even though she was far from home. The first days were strange but wonderful. Omar learned that Sari did not know the names of everyday things. She called the lamp, the bright tree, and the television the moving window. She was fascinated by the small sounds and smells of Earth. Sometimes she laughed softly when Omar showed her how to use a spoon or explained how to open a door. One morning, Sari tried to use the bathroom but got confused by the idea of privacy. Omar found her standing outside the door, looking puzzled. When he explained gently, she nodded and smiled. Later, Omar found her sitting on the balcony, staring at the stars. She seemed happy, peaceful, and free. Omar realized that Sari was not just an alien visitor, she was a friend. Her happiness was simple but true. She found joy in small things that Omar had forgotten to notice in his busy life. Together they shared quiet moments. Omar taught Sari about Earth's food, music, and books. Sari showed Omar how to see the world with fresh eyes. They learned from each other without words, through smiles, laughter, and quiet understanding. The neighbors soon noticed Sari's gentle nature. She helped an old lady carry groceries and played with children in the park. People who met her felt calm and happy. Omar was proud to have Sari as his companion. At night, Omar often sat with Sari and looked at the stars. He wondered about her home and how she felt being so far away. But every time he looked at her face, he saw happiness, a light that no sadness could dim. Omar's life had changed completely. but in the best way possible. The strange visitor from another world had become a part of his world, and to his surprise, she was truly happy. Sari was still new to Earth, and everything around her was strange and wonderful. Omar watched her closely as she tried to understand this new world. She didn't know many words yet, and some things that seemed normal to Omar were completely confusing to her. But Sari was curious and excited. Every day brought something new. One morning, Omar woke up early and found Sari standing in the kitchen. She was staring at a toaster, tilting her head to one side like she was trying to solve a puzzle. The toaster was quiet and cold, but Sari reached out carefully and pushed the lever down. Suddenly, a piece of bread popped up with a loud pop. She jumped back in surprise and laughed softly. It was a small moment, but Omar smiled. Sari's laugh was warm and genuine, and it made the quiet apartment feel alive. Sari didn't know what a toaster was, but she was eager to learn. Omar showed her how to make simple food, and she watched closely, fascinated by every step. When Omar poured cereal into a bowl, she looked at the falling flakes like they were tiny snowflakes. She touched the milk and said a word that sounded like cool, then smiled brightly. Some things were harder to explain. One day, Sari tried to open a cereal box, but pulled it the wrong way and made a small mess. Omar helped her clean it up, and Sari smiled shyly. Omar realized she didn't just want to learn. She wanted to belong. Sari was very different from anyone Omar had ever met, but she didn't act distant or proud. Instead, she laughed when she made mistakes and tried again with excitement. It was like she saw the world as a great adventure. One afternoon, Omar showed Sari how to open a door. He opened it, stepped through, and said, "This is how you go outside." Sari reached out, pushed the door open, and stepped out carefully. But then she looked back and frowned. She had no idea what to do next. She just stood on the small step looking confused but curious. Omar chuckled and took her hand gently. "You're okay," he said. "It's safe." Sari smiled and followed him outside, where the sun was warm and birds sang in the trees. She looked up at the sky and breathed deeply. It was a big world, but she was not afraid. Sari's confusion wasn't just about things like doors or toasters. Some habits that were normal for Omar were strange to her. One day, she went to the bathroom and closed the door behind her. Then she heard a noise outside and felt trapped. She didn't understand why people needed privacy. Omar had to explain gently, and Sari nodded, still curious about why humans did certain things. But despite all the new and strange things, Sari was happy. Omar noticed it every day. She smiled often, and her eyes shined with joy. She didn't complain or seem lonely. Instead, she found pleasure in the little things. The taste of fresh fruit, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of children playing. Omar began to understand that Sari's happiness was simple but real. She didn't need fancy technology or big cities. She only needed to be in a place where she could learn, explore, and feel safe. Sari loved to sit on the balcony in the evenings, looking at the stars. She would hum a soft tune that sounded like a song from far away. Omar sometimes joined her, and they would watch the sky in silence. In those quiet moments, Omar felt a deep connection to Sari, even though they came from different worlds. One day, Sari followed Omar to the park nearby. Children were playing and laughing, and Sari smiled wide. She walked up to a little boy, who was struggling to climb a small tree. Without hesitation, Sari lifted him gently and helped him reach a branch. The boy laughed and hugged Sari's leg. Omar watched, amazed at how quickly she connected with people. Sari's gentle nature made her popular in the neighborhood. She helped an elderly woman carry her groceries and even offered water to a thirsty dog. Everyone who met Sari felt something special, a calmness and kindness that was hard to explain. Omar was proud of her. At home, Sari was like a child. in many ways, but she also seemed wise beyond her years. She noticed small details that Omar missed. Once, she picked a small wildflower from the park and placed it on Omar's desk. It was a simple gift, but it made Omar smile. He put the flower in a glass of water and looked at it every day. Omar realized Sari's happiness was contagious. She didn't just enjoy life for herself. She made others happy too. She reminded Omar to slow down and notice the world around him. She showed him that joy could be found in the smallest things, like the taste of honey or the sound of rain. Sari didn't speak much, but her actions said everything. Omar learned to communicate with her without words. A smile, a touch, or a shared look was enough. It was a new way of understanding someone, and Omar liked it. One evening, as the city lights twinkled below, Sari looked at Omar and took his hand. It was a simple gesture, but Omar felt it was full of meaning. She was happy here. She was safe. She was home, at least for now. Omar smiled back and squeezed her hand gently. For the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful and excited about the future. With Sari by his side, life was no longer quiet or lonely. It was full of wonder and joy. Sari was still new to Earth, and everything around her was strange and exciting. Omar watched her every day with curiosity. She looked at things carefully, like a child who had just learned to see the world for the first time. Everything was new and sometimes confusing, but she never showed fear. Instead, she had a smile that made Omar's heart feel warm. One morning, Omar found Sari standing in the kitchen, staring at a small machine that looked like a box with a slot on top. It was a toaster, but Sari had no idea what it was for. She touched it gently, then pressed a button, and suddenly, a piece of bread popped out with a small jump. Sari jumped back, surprised, but then she laughed softly. Omar laughed with her, happy to see her so joyful. Even simple things like this were amazing to Sari. She didn't know the names of many things, so Omar tried to teach her in the easiest way he could. He showed her how to pour milk into a bowl, how to eat with a spoon, and how to open doors. Sometimes Sari would do things the wrong way. Once, she tried to open a cereal box from the wrong side, and the cereal spilled all over the floor. She looked embarrassed, but Omar smiled and helped her clean up. Sari's eyes sparkled when Omar showed kindness. It made her want to learn more. Sari was fascinated by everything. She watched the rain fall outside the window and touched the drops as they slid down the glass. She listened to the birds singing in the park and tried to copy their sounds. Omar was amazed at how she noticed small details that he himself often missed. For Sari, even the simplest things were full of wonder. Sometimes, Sari did not understand how humans behaved. One day, Omar found her standing outside the bathroom door, looking confused and a little scared. She did not understand why people closed the door when they used the bathroom. Omar gently explained about privacy and personal space. Sari listened carefully and nodded, but it was clear that some human customs were very strange to her. But Sari was not bothered by these differences. She accepted Earth's strange rules with a smile. She did not complain or ask for special treatment. Instead, she wanted to fit in and learn everything she could. Sari's laughter was one of the most beautiful sounds Omar had ever heard. It was soft and pure, full of happiness. She laughed when Omar showed her how to use a spoon, when she tasted chocolate for the first time, and even when she saw her own reflection in the mirror. It was a happiness that came from deep inside. Omar noticed something important. Sari's happiness was not fake or forced. It was true joy. She did not miss her home planet or feel lonely. Instead, she loved being on Earth and discovering new things every day. This surprised Omar because he had always thought that someone far from home would feel sad or lost. But Sari was different. One evening, Omar and Sari sat on the balcony watching the stars. Sari hummed a soft tune that sounded like a song from another world. Omar felt peaceful listening to her. She pointed at the stars and smiled. For Sari, the stars were familiar, even if everything else was new. Sari also loved to help people. Omar took her to the park one day where children were playing. A small boy was trying to climb a tree, but was afraid to go higher. Sari walked over to him and gently lifted him so he could reach a branch. The boy smiled and hugged her. Omar saw how quickly Sari made friends, even though she did not speak their language. Sari's kindness touched many people. She helped an old lady carry heavy bags from the market and shared water with a thirsty dog. Everyone who met her felt calm and happy. Omar was proud to see how much joy Sari brought to others. At home, Sari was like a curious child. She asked questions in her own way, using gestures and expressions. Sometimes she would draw shapes in the dust on the floor or arrange flowers she found outside. Omar put the flowers in a glass and kept them on his desk. It reminded him of Sari's gentle spirit. Sari's happiness was quiet but powerful. Omar saw how she lived fully in each moment, enjoying what many people take for granted. She taught Omar to slow down and notice the beauty around him. The sound of rain, the taste of sweet fruit, the feel of soft grass underfoot. Even though Sari could not speak much, Omar learned to understand her without words. A smile, a touch, or a look was enough to share thoughts and feelings. This new way of communication made Omar feel closer to her every day. One night, Omar looked at Sari and saw a light in her eyes he had never seen before. She took his hand and held it gently. Omar squeezed her hand back, feeling a happiness he had never known. He realized that Sari's joy was not just her own. It was a gift she shared with him and everyone around her. Sari had come from a world far away, but here on Earth, she was at peace. Her happiness was real and pure, and it changed Omar's life in ways he never expected. He smiled, feeling lucky to have Sari as his companion. Word spread quickly in Omar's neighborhood that he was living with an alien visitor. At first, people were curious and a little nervous. Some thought Sari might be strange or even dangerous because she was different. But when they saw her, their fear disappeared. Sari had a kind smile and gentle eyes that made everyone feel calm and safe. One day, scientists and reporters arrived at Omar's door. They had cameras, notebooks, and many questions. They wanted to study Sari and learn everything about her. Omar was worried. He did not want Sari to feel uncomfortable or treated like an experiment. But Sari surprised him once again. She did not answer their questions with words. She didn't speak their language. Instead, she did something no one expected. Sari sat quietly, smiling at everyone. Then she reached down and picked a small flower from a nearby pot. She held it out to the oldest scientist, who looked surprised. He accepted the flower with a smile. Sari showed everyone that she did not need words to communicate. She used kindness and simple gestures to connect with people. Her actions said more than any language could. She taught the visitors that sometimes feelings are more important than words. Over the next days, many people came to meet Sari. She met children playing in the park, and instead of talking, she joined their games. She laughed and ran with them, her green skin shining under the sun. The children loved her, and she loved their energy. To them, she was not an alien, but a new friend. Omar watched as Sari made the neighborhood a happier place. She helped an elderly man carry his groceries, even though the bags were heavy. She sang softly to a frightened stray dog until it felt safe enough to come close. Sari's calm presence made people forget their worries for a while. Some of the visitors were scientists who wanted to learn about Sari's home and her people. They asked Omar if Sari could show them her technology or speak about her world. But Sari never did these things. She simply smiled and sat quietly, choosing to connect through simple kindness instead. Omar realized Sari was not interested in impressing others with knowledge or power. She cared about something deeper. Sari wanted to make people happy and feel safe. That was her gift. One afternoon, Omar took Sari to the local library. It was a quiet place, filled with books and stories from many lands. Sari wandered slowly through the aisles, touching the pages gently. She looked at the pictures and seemed fascinated by the stories. Omar found a book about Earth's animals and showed it to her. Sari looked at the pictures of birds, fish, and elephants with wide eyes. Then she smiled and made soft sounds, as if trying to imitate them. Omar laughed and felt a warm feeling inside. Sari's joy was like sunshine. At night, Omar noticed. Sari sometimes looked up at the sky with a thoughtful expression. She pointed at the stars and hummed her soft tune again. Omar wished he could understand what she was thinking. One evening, while the city was quiet and the stars shone brightly, Sari surprised Omar once more. She walked to the small garden on the balcony and planted some seeds she had found in the park. She carefully covered them with soil and watered them. Omar watched in silence, touched by her care for such a simple thing. Sari's actions showed Omar that she was not just happy to be on Earth, but she wanted to help it grow and heal. She had a deep respect for life, no matter how small. As the days passed, more neighbors stopped by just to see Sari. They brought small gifts, flowers, fruits, even drawings made by children. Sari accepted everything with a gentle bow and a smile. She made each visitor feel special. Omar understood that Sari's happiness was not just about being in a new place. It was about sharing kindness and love with those around her. Her peaceful nature was like a light that brightened everyone's day. One morning, Omar took Sari to the market. It was a busy place filled with colors, sounds, and smells. Sari moved slowly, watching people buy fruits, spices, and clothes. She reached out and touched the soft skin of an apple and smiled. Suddenly, a loud noise startled her. A child had dropped a basket, and fruits rolled everywhere. Sari quickly helped the child pick up the fruits and handed them back with a bright smile. People around clapped softly, happy to see her kindness. Omar realized that Sari's happiness was not just a feeling inside her. It was a power that could change the world around her. She was like a gentle breeze that could calm storms and bring peace. At night, when Omar and Sari sat together, he often thought about how different their worlds were, but Sari did not worry about differences. She taught Omar to focus on what connected them, their hearts and their happiness. One evening, Sari looked at Omar and took his hand in hers. Omar felt a calmness that he had never known. In that moment, words were not needed. Their friendship was strong and true. Omar knew that Sari's visit was special. She was not just a visitor from another planet. She was a teacher, a healer, and a friend. And through her happiness, she was changing his world and maybe the whole Earth, one smile at a time. The day came faster than Omar expected. Sari's spaceship was ready to take her back to her home planet. The quiet apartment where they had shared so many moments now felt different, filled with a strange mix of happiness and sadness. Omar tried not to think about the goodbye, but it was there in every look and every silence. Sari seemed calm and peaceful. She did not say much, but her eyes held a gentle kindness that spoke more than words ever could. She had been Omar's companion, friend, and teacher. Through her, Omar had learned to see the world in a new way, with hope, joy, and love. The morning Sari was to leave, Omar helped her pack a small bag with a few things she wanted to take back home. She looked around the apartment one last time, touching the walls and the furniture gently, as if remembering every detail. Outside, neighbors gathered quietly. They had come to say goodbye to Sari, the alien visitor who had touched their lives, in ways they could not explain. Children held small flowers, and the old lady from next door smiled sadly. Sari walked slowly toward the spaceship, her green skin glowing softly in the morning light. She turned once and looked at Omar. For a moment, they shared a silent understanding, a bond that words could never break. Then, with a soft wave, Sari stepped into the ship. The door closed behind her, and the spaceship lifted slowly into the sky. Omar watched until it disappeared among the clouds, feeling a deep emptiness inside. In the days that followed, Omar felt the silence in the apartment more than ever. Sari's laughter, her quiet humming, and her gentle touch were gone. The small balcony where she had planted seeds now held tiny green plants, growing slowly but surely. Omar took care of the plants, watering them every day. He found comfort in watching them grow. They were like a reminder of Sari's presence, a symbol of hope and new beginnings. Life outside continued as usual, but something inside Omar had changed forever. He smiled more often, helped strangers without thinking, and found joy in small things: a warm cup of tea, a cool breeze, the sound of birds in the morning. Omar knew Sari had left more than memories behind. She had planted a seed in his heart, a seed of kindness and happiness that would grow for the rest of his life. Neighbors still talked about Sari. They shared stories of her kindness and the peace she brought to their community. Some people said they felt happier after meeting her. Others said she had taught them to be patient and gentle. Omar often went to the park where Sari had played with the children. He watched the kids laughing and running, remembering how Sari had joined their games without words, only smiles and laughter. One day, Omar found a small notebook Sari had left on his desk. Inside, there were drawings, simple pictures of stars, plants, and happy faces. Omar smiled as he looked at the pages. It was Sari's way of saying goodbye, a quiet message full of love. Omar kept the notebook close and read it whenever he felt lonely. It reminded him that happiness was not something to wait for, but something to create and share every day. Sometimes, when the sky was clear and the stars shone brightly, Omar would look up and think of Sari. He believed she was out there somewhere, spreading joy and healing on her home planet and beyond. He knew she was truly happy, just as she had been when she was with him. Sari's happiness was not tied to a place or a person. It was inside her, a light that could never be lost. Omar felt grateful for the time they had shared. Sari had taught him more than words could say. She had shown him how to love, how to heal, and how to find joy in the simplest moments. And in that joy, Omar found his own happiness.